I had this really strong feeling that I was going to get married quickly, that it was very strange that I had that thought because I wasn't really writing anyone, didn't have a boyfriend, I didn't really have any real prospects, and I was just trying really hard to focus on my mission. I remember being in the celestial room and I was saying a prayer and I said, God, I had this feeling coming home from my mission that I was going to get married quickly. And I remember thinking, I haven't even been on a date with Josh Billings, so I'm not even going to pray about Josh, but just please, God, lead me to my future husband. And so I told him, I texted him and I was like, hey, would you want to go to the temple as part of our date? Looking back, it was definitely divine because I don't think I would normally do that without a little nudge from God. God knew what he was doing and kind of forewarned me that it was going to be happening. And then it all played out and worked out in the most perfect way.
Welcome to Dear Daughters of God. My name is Stephanie Eccles. Thank you for joining me on this episode. It's here where we tell the stories where we've seen the hand of God in our lives. Today we have a guest. Her name is Sydney Bennett Billings, and I think you're really going to love her story. Sydney, welcome to Dear Daughters.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie.
You bet. It's my pleasure. I was thinking back to when we first met, and it's over 10 years ago, maybe more like 12, 13 years ago. I was new in this neighborhood and going to a new ward, and I was placed in the young women's leadership role. And Sydney was a young woman, which is the organization for women between the ages of 12 and 18. And there was Sydney. What I remember about you is that you had a sweet, gentle love about you towards all the other girls, which gave them a secure, safe place in which they could go to Sydney and speak to her, and she was there to demonstrate her love and make them feel comfortable. That was a real gift amongst the young women, especially at that insecure time in our lives. That's what I remember about you, Sydney.
Thank you. I think you may give me too much credit, but that's very sweet of you. Thank you.
No, I'm not giving you too much credit, but I know you want to be humble. All right, Sydney, you have this neat story that's based around your family, like your immediate family, your husband and your children. And I want everyone to hear it. But first, they need to know about where you are in this part of your life, because you're not a young woman anymore.
No.
You're a grown woman. So let's introduce you. Okay. Sydney is a mother and an artist at heart. She loves painting and anything that allows her to create. Her two greatest masterpieces are her daughters, ages 3 and 9 months. Most of her time is spent in the busy season of young motherhood, balancing her children, a part-time role in a nonprofit marketing, and freelance graphic design. In her spare moments, she enjoys crafting, reading, nature, journaling, photography, and of course, painting. Faith has always been central in Sydney's life, and she is learning how to weave her spirituality into the everyday demands of her motherhood, finding new ways to invite Christ into her daily rhythm. That must be a delight to be in this time. Also, a challenge to bring in those spiritual moments when you're so busy with 2 little ones running around the house, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I feel so grateful that I'm in this stage of life. I'm trying to soak up every moment that I have with my 2 little girls. But yeah, it's hard. It's busy. It's hard to find time to do the spiritual things and make time for Christ. My oldest is 3 years old, so we're 3 years in and still trying to figure it out, but we're getting there.
Yes. So in your introduction, you were talking about nature journaling, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been a super fun thing that I've started recently. My mother-in-law was the one that kind of got me into it. And it's super fun. It's a good way to connect with nature. And like you said, I am an artist. I love painting. I love drawing, that kind of thing. So it's been a really good way to combine that with my love of nature. And so my husband's been doing it with me. And my daughter, she's been wanting to do it with us too. When we go to the park, she's been asking to have her own little notebook. So we've been bringing one for her. And it's a great way just to look and see what's around you. It's a great way to notice the things around you. And, I love it because I can sketch what I see. And it's been really fun for my husband, who's not an artist, to practice his art skills as well. And just a good way to connect with God and nature. And it's been really fun.
Yes, what a great way to a grateful heart by taking that time to notice all the details of the beauty on this earth.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And you're teaching your daughter how to have this quiet, meditative moment. And here she is so young.
Yes.
Right? Your 3-year-old that's participating.
It's been great. My daughter loves paint, and I'm hoping that she becomes a little artist like me. So it's been fun to share that with her.
That's neat. Okay, speaking of your husband, Josh, and your daughter, they have an important role in your story today, right?
Yes.
And it started before they were formally a part of your life. Now, this started back in high school. Is that right?
Yes. All the way back in.
Well, tell us about that. How did it all come about in high school? That was a long time ago.
Yeah. So I went to a school called Woods Cross for my first 2 years of high school. And then come my junior year, I just felt like something was off in my life and I wasn't quite sure what it was. I remember just feeling very unhappy and something wasn't quite right and I couldn't put a finger on it. I talked to my brother and one day I was talking to my best friend and she went to a different high school in the area, which was actually my rival high school. And she was like, Sydney, have you ever thought about switching high schools? What if you switched from Woods Cross and came to my school? What if you came to Bountiful? And at the time I just laughed. I was like, why would I do that? You guys are our rival high school, and I have my cheer team here. I have all my friends. This is where I'm comfortable.
You were even on the cheer team then.
Was.
You were very settled in.
Yeah, I was very involved in school. And so it was hard to think about just picking up and leaving that and starting fresh, especially my senior year, my last year of high school. And she kept pestering me about it. And she was so persistent that I finally told her, you know what? I'll pray about it and we'll see what happens. But the second that I started praying about it, I had this feeling that maybe it was something that I should consider. And, as a 17-year-old girl, that was kind of a terrifying thought to think that, oh, shoot, maybe I do need to switch schools. And so I prayed and prayed about it for months. And I finally came to the conclusion that if I got permission to go to that school, because I wasn't in the boundaries of that school, so I had to request special permission to go. If I get that permission, then I'll go, no questions asked. And if I don't, then I'll stay at my high school where I'm at and I'll try to just make the best of the rest of high school. So I got the letter saying that I got into the other school. And I remember just opening up the letter and thinking like, oh, shoot, I told God I was going to do this and now I have to do it. And it was really scary. Honestly, it was really scary to tell my friends that I was switching high schools, that I was leaving. And I had a lot of friends that were really kind and understanding and supportive, but there were a number of other people that didn't understand why I was doing it. They told me that I was betraying them, that I was betraying the school, going to our rival school, and people gave me a pretty hard time about it. And honestly, it didn't really matter what they said because I just knew so strong in my heart that that's what God was wanting me to do. I didn't know why. I just had this strong feeling that I needed to switch high schools. So it didn't really matter what people said. I just knew that it was what I needed to do.
Yeah, it's good for you for just holding strong to what you were feeling inside, what the Spirit was bearing witness to you. But I can see that would have been a time of great social pressure. Yes, students can take their school loyalty very seriously. And then friendships, right, are just so very important at that time in our lives, especially. But you stayed strong with what you had promised. And that was if you got in, you'd go to Bountiful High.
My senior year, I switched high schools to Bountiful. And at the beginning of my senior years when I met my husband, Josh, and I remember the first time we met, it was just a funny set of circumstances. He was with a mutual friend of ours, and this mutual friend of ours, I remember, had a crush on me, but he had this friend, Josh. I was like, oh, but his friend Josh is really cute. So I started talking to them, and the more I got to talk to Josh, I just was really impressed with him. He was really sweet and kind, and I just immediately was pretty smitten with him. But as we were talking, he told me that he had a girlfriend. So, I was like, okay, he has a girlfriend. It's fine. But he was telling me, I go to Bountiful. So, as we start this new school year, let's be friends. I'll see you in the halls. I'll say hi. He started opening up to me about his life. And he actually opened up to me about his patriarchal blessing. I remember thinking that it was really odd that this guy that I had just met was telling me about his patriarchal blessing, but he shared a line in his patriarchal blessing that talked specifically about his wife. And I remember thinking it was so sweet, but never in a million years did I think that was going to be me. All the puzzle pieces were just starting to come together. But at the time, I just thought, this is strange. He must really trust me, I guess, to share something so special with me.
He must have felt that natural connection to you. Yeah, I mean, you were definitely in the safe zone because you were the friend. And so he must have felt that ease of talking with you, just that natural ease to share such a personal part of his life.
I would hope so.
About his future wife.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so he was true to his word. He said hi to me every time he saw me at school and he was just so nice and welcoming. And the second half of the year, we had a class together. And so we became better friends the second half of the year with that. When I was a senior, I was ready to be done with high school. So I actually skipped class quite a bit. And I would always text Josh and be like, hey, Josh, what did we miss in class today? And he would tell me what we did, tell me if I missed any assignments and things. And we ended up becoming better friends. I just remember thinking that he was just such a nice guy. And whoever married him was going to, like, whoever got the chance to date him was just going to be the luckiest girl ever. And he invited me to hang out with him and his friends a couple times. And I always said no because I was pretty shy and I was nervous. You know, I didn't know his friends very well and I was at a different school. And looking back, I always wonder if I should have said yes and gone and hung out with him. But I think maybe God knew that the timing wasn't quite right just yet. And so we were friends throughout our whole senior year. And then he went on his mission. And then I went on my mission after high school ended. And we wrote a few times here and there, but always just friendly, just kind of checking in on each other's missions. How are you doing? How's the mission? And that was pretty much it. And then he went home. And about a month before I finished my mission, I get this email from him. And he just was checking in with me. It was around Christmas time, so he was doing one of the Light the World prompts, which was to write a missionary. And he had the feeling to write me. So we kind of chatted back and forth a few times. And then I thought, I'm coming home in a month. I don't really have time to be emailing boys. If he wants to talk to me when I get home, that's great. But for now, I need to really focus on my mission. So I kind of just left it. And then lo and behold, I get home from my mission. And I know you remember this because I grew up in your ward. So I gave my homecoming talk and I was sitting up on the stand and I remember seeing Josh Billings walk into the sacrament meeting holding his scriptures. And he came up and sat on the very front row. And I kind of gave him a little confused wave because I remember thinking, who invited him? Because I hadn't posted about it. I hadn't really told a lot of people when or where or anything. And so I was really shocked that he was there.
I remember when he was there because I hadn't seen him since he was in junior high. He went to the school where I worked, Legacy. And so I knew him then, but I hadn't seen him in 4 or 5 years, probably a little more than that. He had grown up. Now he's looking a little different, like a man. And he found Richard and me right behind him and was very friendly and so excited to be there at your homecoming. And he was like, yeah, so excited. Sydney's home. This is so great. And I was thinking, wow, they must have been in a real serious relationship before they left. I mean, look at him. He is so excited to be here, sitting right on the front row and wanting to interact with anyone that knows Sydney and just can't wait to hear you. I thought, something's up. He's got some big plans on his mind. It just felt really excited and intense.
Yeah. I don't know if he knew coming to my homecoming that we'd end up dating, but that's just his personality, to come in and he's just so friendly and he can make friends with anyone, be anywhere comfortably. And so it was just very much his personality to come into a place and just be excited and happy to be there, like you were saying. So that's not surprising to hear that he was like that. So yeah, I was sitting up on the stand and when I got home from my mission, it was really interesting, actually. I had this really strong feeling that I was going to get married quickly. And I remember thinking that it was very strange that I had that thought because I wasn't really writing anyone, didn't have a boyfriend, I didn't really have any real prospects, and I was just trying really hard to focus on my mission. And anyway, so coming home from my mission, I was thinking about the things that I wanted in my future husband. And one of the things that I really wanted was for him to speak Spanish. And I had a couple other kind of funny requisites that I wanted my husband to have, one of which was I was really hoping that I could marry someone of Mexican descent because I had lived in Mexico for a few months before my mission. And so for whatever reason, that felt very important to me. And then as my mission came to a close, I was thinking about it and I was like, I can't not marry someone because they're white or because they're different ethnicity. Like that can't be number one on my priority list, but they do have to speak Spanish. That's a non-negotiable. They have to speak Spanish. So I looked at Josh and for a split second, I had the thought, oh, Josh Billings, maybe I could date him. And then almost as quick as I had that thought, I dismissed it from my mind. I said, no, he served in Brazil. He speaks Portuguese. He doesn't speak Spanish. Off the list.
Sydney, when you're up on the stand before you give your homecoming talk, is that right?
Yes. So I even say hi to him before anything. I'm looking at him from the stand and this is all going through my head. And I think, no, he served in Brazil, speaks Portuguese, not an option. So I give my talk, and then afterwards he ran into my mom, and my mom was trying to get home with my dad to kind of set up for the after party, so to speak. And I had gotten caught talking to people in the ward. And so my mom ran into Josh. She had actually never met him, but he had befriended her on Facebook about a month or so earlier and reached out and asked for my email. And she had heard of him when I was in high school. So she's like, okay, Josh Billings. I kind of remember hearing about him. And she had stalked his Facebook page back when he asked for my email. And she was like, he seems nice, it seems like a nice guy. So she was like, Josh, can you please find Sydney and take her home? Give her a ride home because we have to go.
Nice move on your mother's part.
I know.
I'll just give them the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So she asked Josh.
Yes. So she asked Josh to take me home. And so he came and found me, and he was like, hey, your mom asked if I could take you home. And I was like, okay, whatever. And so we get in the car. I remember a couple days before this, I was talking to my sister and I was asking her, how did you know that you loved your husband before you guys got married? And she told me that like their first or second date, he helped her put her coat on, and she just had this random thought, oh, I love him. And then she was like, no, that's crazy. Like, we just started dating. I don't love him. I remember when I was getting into Josh's car, he was parked in front of the snow. So he said, wait, let me pull up the car so that you don't have to walk through the snow to get in. I had that thought. I was like, oh my gosh, I love him. And then I was like, wait, you're crazy. You just saw him for the first time in years. You don't love this man, whatever. So I'm just kind of laughing like, okay, that was weird. So I get in the car and we're talking, we're catching up, and I'd only been home from my mission for about 2 days. And so Spanish was still really fresh on my mind because I had served my mission in Chile. So I'm talking to him, and then I got really excited and I switched into Spanish, and I corrected myself. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot you don't speak Spanish. And then in Spanish, he starts responding to me, and I was very taken aback. I was like, wait, you don't speak Spanish. You served a mission in Brazil. Like, you speak Portuguese. And in Spanish, he's saying, no, I do speak Spanish. And out loud, I'm just kind of, my stream of consciousness is kind of coming out of my mouth as this is all happening. And I'm going, no, you're lying. I'm realizing these two really important things to me, marrying someone of Mexican descent and then marrying someone who speaks Spanish. I'm realizing, oh my goodness, he has both of those things. Josh Billings, this guy that I've known for years, I never thought that he would have those.
So here you are, like doing a checklist in your head.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's thinking everything's just normal, and this checklist thing is going on in your head.
Yes.
Right?
And I remember thinking like, okay, God, is this you? Is this just some crazy coincidence? I wasn't really sure, but I thought, I've been home from my mission 2 days. And honestly, I wasn't interested in dating for a couple months. And so I kind of just pushed it out of my mind. And he came over and hung out with my family at my house afterwards. And we played games, we ate lots of food, and he stayed. And I remember thinking like, that's kind of weird that he stayed after all of my friends had left. And before he left, he wrote down his phone number on a napkin and then gave it to me and my family. They were right there. He was very brave and did it in front of my whole family. And after he left, they were like, Sid, he must like you. That's really brave of him to give you his number in front of all of us. And I was like, I'm sure it's nothing. And I put his number on my dresser, and I thought, I am never going to text him. Or if I do, I'll text him in like 6 months,
Oh, you just weren't ready to date.
No, I'd been home for 2 days, and I was like, no, I need to focus on, my future, my college, got to figure out my life plan. So I put his number on my dresser, and I thought, I'm never going to text him. And then every time I passed my dresser, I just had this thought that I should text him. And every time I pushed it away until probably the 5th or 6th time. And I thought, you know what? If I'm still feeling like I should text him, I probably should. And so I reached out, I texted him, and from there we started talking. So we were kind of planning like, next time you come down, let's go on a date or let's hang out, whatever. And so after this, I went to the temple, and I remember being in the celestial room, and I was saying a prayer, and I said, God, I had this feeling coming home from my mission that I was going to get married quickly. And I remember thinking, I haven't even been on a date with Josh Billings, so I'm not even going to pray about Josh, but just please, God, lead me to my future husband. And then I walked out of the temple, and Josh called me on the phone. He called me and he asked me officially on a date.
Right when you're out of the temple.
Yes, I remember I walked right out of the temple and he called me, and it was another one of those moments where I kind of looked at God and I was like, okay, like I literally just prayed about this. Is this you? Is this a coincidence?
What timing? Perfect timing.
Perfect, yeah.
Heavenly timing, huh?
Exactly. Anyway, from there, he asked me on our first date. And so we were kind of planning all the things we wanted to do when he came into town for our first date. I had the thought that I should invite him to go to the temple that day. That was going to be our first date. And I was like, man, that's crazy. He's going to think I want to marry him. I'm not going to do that. But I had the feeling you should invite him to go to the temple. And so I told him, I texted him and I was like, hey, would you want to go to the temple as part of our date? He was happy to do it. And so when we went to the temple, we did an endowment session. And usually in the endowment session, the women are sitting on one side and the men are sitting on one side. And we got there so late that when we got to the endowment room, they sat us right next to each other. And I just thought that was the most bizarre thing, because never had I been sat next to a man when I was doing an endowment session, because like I said, they're on different sides of the room, you know? And so it was another moment where I looked at God and I thought, okay, I think I should start paying attention to this. I think this was deliberate on your part. And we did the session and it was really sweet. And then I remember we were in the celestial room after, and I remember just looking at him and thinking, you know, I could really see into the eternities with him. And it was the first time that I had ever thought that about anyone that I had dated. And I just thought, you know, this guy is special and I could really see a future with him and an eternity with him. And so that was really cool.
Wow, that is amazing. On the first date.
On the first.
And I would have to compliment you. That took so much courage to invite him to go to the temple, which is a forward type of date. On your first date. Oh, that's what you felt like you should do.
Yeah.
I'm just impressed with your courage.
Thank you. Yeah, looking back, it was definitely divine, because I don't think I would normally do that without a little nudge from God. But after that, honestly, the rest was history. We started dating pretty much immediately. And I remember when we were dating, the temple was a very important thing to us. We tried to go as often as we could. And we had an experience that was really special. While I was living up in Idaho for school, he came to visit me while I was going to school there. And we went to the temple and we had a really special experience. To preface this story, before my mission, I went through a lot of really hard things. I felt like life was just throwing one thing after another my way. And it felt like such a struggle to actually get onto a mission. One of the things that was so hard about that time was I was in a relationship that was very tumultuous. It was very toxic, not a good situation for me at all. And I struggled a lot. I just remember feeling like mentally, I was just caught in this cloud and I was confused. I was sad all the time. Just really not a good situation for me. And while I was in that relationship, my grandma called me and she had previously talked to my mom about this. And my mom thought that she should call me and share the experience that she had with me. And if you know my grandma, she is this tiny little woman that is just full of faith, full of light. And I don't know that I've ever met anyone who was so close to the spirit, who was so close to God and close to the other side of the veil. And so she called me and she told me, you know, I'm nervous to share this with you, but I hope you know that I'm doing this because I love you. And I felt that it was really important. And so she started telling me that she had been having a conversation with my grandpa, which was a little bit strange because my grandfather had passed away quite a few years earlier.
Oh, okay.
Hearing that from her wasn't super strange because, like I said, she's so spiritual and so close to the other side of the veil. And I knew that she had frequent conversations with God and felt my grandpa around and kind of guiding her with different things. So she told me, you know, I was having a conversation with your grandfather and I felt him come to me and he told me, we're worried about Sydney. She felt that when he said he was referring to him and my children. And then she felt another impression from who she felt was one of my children saying, that is not our dad. And at the time when this all happened, she didn't even know that I was dating anyone. She didn't know I was in a relationship, but she called me and she was like, are you dating someone? I was like, yeah, I am. That's crazy that you didn't even know that and you had this experience. And quite frankly, when she told me that story, I already knew that it wasn't true, that I wasn't supposed to end up with this person that I was with. And hearing her share that experience with me just really solidified that. And I just felt so strong in my heart that this wasn't where I needed to be. And God knew it, and my grandfather knew it, and my children even knew it. And they were telling my grandma, this is not our dad. And so that was a really special experience that really gave me the courage and strength to leave that relationship, because I knew that there was something different and something much better for me out there.
Remarkable. How remarkable to have that experience and then to have the courage to share it with you. And like you said, she didn't even know you were in a relationship. You were being tapped from the other side.
Definitely.
Yeah. They wanted you to get that message.
Yeah. And so when I was at the temple with Josh that day up in Rexburg, we were doing a sealing session and there's a part in the ceiling where they talk about doing the ordinance in front of witnesses and angels, something along those lines. And every time they said the word angels, I felt like my children were there in the room with us. And it felt really special. And so after Josh and I were sitting in the celestial room, and I shared this experience that I had had with my grandma, and I told him that while we were in the ceiling room that I felt like my kids were there with me. And then Josh, he felt this little voice tell him, "She's right, Dad, listen to her." And so it was in that moment that both of us kind of connected the dots. And at this point, we knew that we wanted to get married and we wanted to start a life together. But it was just a sweet confirmation to us both that we were on the right path and that our children had guided me to where I was at. And now our children were kind of giving him a little confirmation on his end. Like, this is right. You need to listen to what she's saying. This experience that she's telling you is true. And it was really sweet because it felt like they were telling me, like, this is the man we want as our father. And I don't know that I necessarily believe in soulmates per se, but I think that God knows who our lives can be happier with. And I think God knew that my life would be really happy with Josh. And I think my kids wanted him as their father. And so for both of us to have those experiences in the temple was just the most special thing.
What an incredible experience that you feel like they're there with you when you're doing your temple work. And then in the celestial room, he feels that sweet voice come to him from one of your children. Remind me, what words did he feel that voice said to him again?
The words he felt or heard were, "She's right, Dad, listen to her."
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah.
So sweet. Yeah.
And it's really special because we just had our second daughter about 9 months ago. And I can't remember at what point this happened, but I had a thought a couple months ago and I thought, I think it was Josie that said that to him. And so that was really special to be holding.
Is Josie your second daughter?
Yes, my baby. So I was holding and I was looking at her and I had that thought, this was the child that was talking to him in that moment. And it was really special to hold her and to look at her and to think, those thoughts and feelings that we had are now an actual person that I'm holding. And just to think that she had guided us to where we were and helped things fall into place for us, along with my grandma and our other children. Just really cool to think that they had a hand in leading us to where we were.
Yes, it is. It is so incredible, just marvelous that they were so aware of you, not even being on this earth, but knowing how important it would be the man you married and their father. It makes it so beautiful and sweet, picturing them as anticipating coming to be with the two of you. So at that point, did you get engaged right after, or what happened from there? Because, you guys, as you said, you were knowing that you wanted to get married, right?
Yes. So it was funny because we knew that we wanted to get married and we had had all these really amazing experiences that we felt God kind of telling us, this is what I want for you guys. And it was funny because my parents kind of sat me down. They were like, Sydney, you know that you're going to marry this guy. Why don't you just get engaged? And then Josh's parents had a similar experience with him. They were like, Josh, why don't you just get engaged? You guys know you're going to get married. And so we thought it was kind of odd that both of our parents were telling us, just do it, get engaged. You know that you want to do it. Don't waste any time. Just get it done. And so we got engaged after 2 or 3 months of dating. It was very shortly after I got home from my mission, and then married 5 months after that. So in total, it was about 8 months from dating to marriage, which is just kind of funny because on my mission, I had a feeling that I was going to get married quickly, and I just could not picture what that might look like. And then 8 or 9 months later, that was my reality. And just funny that God knew what he was doing and kind of forewarned me that it was going to be happening. And then it all played out and worked out in the most perfect way.
Yes, he prepared you well. So you were emotionally and mentally ready for that quick turnaround from being a missionary to married just in those short few months.
Yes.
But you were ready. You were prepared beforehand. You understood. I'm going to get married soon after I get home. But like you said, you didn't know how it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But there it was.
It's funny how God can do that. He just has a way of making it all work out the way he needs it to.
Yes. And I remember your reception, such a sweet moment in your reception. It was in a backyard, a beautiful backyard. So a setting of nature, which you and Josh like so much. But he sang a song to you. Tell us about that. That was very courageous and romantic.
Very romantic, yes. So there was a song that we liked while we were dating, and it's called Saving More Hearts Than Mine. And so he took the original lyrics and kind of tailored them to our relationship. And he added lines about his sister and his dad and how us getting married was not only saving his heart, but saving the hearts around him. And It's a really sweet song, and the way he adapted it to us was just really, really cute. And like you said, romantic. And he had one of his mission companions playing the piano for him. And he was so brave and sang it in front of everyone, sang it to me in front of all of those people. And it was just such a sweet moment for him to kind of do this scary thing and show me that he loved me and try to vocalize that in such a beautiful way. And I remember after I ran up to him and I gave him a hug and he whispered in my ear and he was like, that was so scary. I'm so nervous. And so just very sweet of him to put himself out there and do that for me. It was really cute.
It was so sweet. The whole audience, all the guests it was just a quiet moment after he finished. Everyone just had to revel in the genuine way of that love that he had for you. Before you could move, you just had to hold still and just take it in. It was so beautifully done. I could see the audience just pause before any applause because it was so tender, that moment. Yeah. What an incredible story, Sydney. And you've shared with me some quotes that demonstrate how you were led along. I have one that you shared with me from President Russell M. Nelson. And he says, quote, "Nothing will open the heavens more than worshiping in the temple. Nothing," unquote. And boy, was that a significant part of your whole courtship from the very first date, worshiping in the temple together. Do you feel that prepared you to make this move into marriage in this quick timing?
Definitely, yes. I don't think that I could have been convinced any other way. I think God had to give me some pretty direct signals that this is what he was wanting me to do. Then obviously it's what I wanted to do as well. But, like you said, I just got him for my mission, and the thought of jumping into marriage was kind of scary. I definitely think that the temple was one of the most important things in our relationship. And like that quote says, I really do feel like God had this box of blessings and answers and things that he wanted to give to us. And as we went to the temple, he just poured that out onto us. And I think for both of us, not just on my end, but I think for Josh too, he had some experiences where he just felt in the temple that this was the right thing for us. I look back and I think that's probably the only way I could have gone from a mission to dating to marriage so quickly, but God knew that's what I needed and helps me find that through the temple.
Yes, I agree with you. There's another quote that is also from President Nelson that you shared with me. It says, President Nelson says, quote, "If you don't yet love to attend the temple, go more often, not less. Let the Lord, through his Spirit, teach and inspire you. I promise you that over time, the temple will become a place of safety, solace, and revelation." Unquote. A place of revelation. I mean, that's another significant part of the blessing that came to the two of you by going to the temple. Revelation from your children and from your grandmother.
Yes. I really love that quote, especially in this phase of life that I'm in now, because, when we first started dating, when we got married, we had a lot more time to go to the temple and get those blessings. But now that we have 2 kids, it's just so busy. I'm sure you remember when your children were little. And a few months ago, our bishop actually invited us to go to the temple every single week. And after he said that, I was honestly kind of upset. I was like, he doesn't know how busy we are. Josh works night shifts and I work a part-time job and then a couple odd jobs here and there. We've got 2 kids. We're barely hanging on here.
Yeah.
Really nice to hear you read that quote, because it's a good reminder that even though we haven't been to the temple as much as we used to, we can still find time to do it and to love it again. And as we go, we can receive that revelation and help we need, because, man, I don't know when else you need revelation and help more than when you're a young mother just trying to figure things out and figure out how to be a mom and how to raise these little kids and, just such different phases of life. And so, yeah, I love that quote. And it's a good reminder to me that I can go back to the temple and it can help me even now in my super busy stage of life.
Yes, I so agree with you. I mean, you are raising your children in the most vulnerable time of lives when they're so strongly influenced by you. And this is the time that, like you said, you need that guidance. How do I mother them? What do they need from me? All of those questions come to your mind as you're raising your children in their early years. They continue on, but it's just the most vulnerable time in their lives. Their most impressionable times that you want to set the stage, set the feeling of what you expect from them and what they're worth when they're in that young, very impressionable age.
When our bishop invited us to go to the temple every week, his counselor was sitting there next to us and we had both of our kids on our laps, and his counselor goes, "Bishop, can't you see they have their hands full?" And the bishop said, That's exactly why they should be in the temple every week. I love what you said because it is such an impressionable time, and I can't think of something more important to do than be in the temple. It's just such an impressionable time for them, and I want to do a good job and don't think I can do it by myself. I know I can't do it by myself.
Yes. It was definitely one of the gifts that President Nelson brought into my life. It was his emphasis on attending the temple, in part, that influenced me to be ready to hear when the Spirit said to me, it's time for you to go every week. And I had heard President Nelson's words, just like the ones we've read, and it helped prepare me for that prompting. And then I look back and realize the strength that gave me, even for later times that were to come when I started having migraines, and the strength that gave me when that weakened me so much, having the migraines. So President Nelson blessed us all by emphasizing the power and the strength and the revelation and all those things he mentioned that will come by attending the temple more often.
Yeah. He left such a good legacy of that behind, with his passing. I think everyone can look back and remember the emphasis that he put on the temples and all the temples that they announced. And I think if there's one thing I'll remember from him, it's that going to the temple is one of the most important things we can do.
I agree. Sydney, it's been so delightful having you here. Thank you for sharing this story with us. It's so glorious to hear how the hand of God touched your life and Josh's life, even through your children who are not here yet, and your grandmother giving you that preface before you started dating Josh, that your children were aware of who you were dating, and they wanted you to find him, Josh. They wanted you to find him. It's neat to be this far in the future and look back and see all these connections, clear from when you were in high school, starting these connections that brought the two of you together. Yeah.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be here and share my story, so thank you.
Oh, Sydney, thank you. It's our delight. All right. And for now, we'll say farewell until we meet again.